Aloha! It was very nice meeting the fam today. Tell you what, the reason why I do this is I absolutely love music. And what I'd like to do is give you enough vocabulary to be able to communicate musically. Also to see the world in kind of a musical fashion. We could talk about things how frequencies are the same thing as photons, and light and sound basically react the same way with bandwidths and frequency peaks and troughs. What I'd like to talk about right now is just a little concept that we did not go over, but it fits in quite well. If we have a single note, and that single note has a note head and a stem, we consider that to be one of many notes. Our whole note is going to be worth 4 beats. When we have a whole note and we divide that whole note, we get 2 half notes. Now what I did was I took those whole note function and drew a circle and then put a stem off to the side. These 2 notes become half notes. When we continue this process, this concept is called the family tree of music. There are a couple more notes here and there, but the first couple notes that we start off with are these. The teeter-totters use whole steps. When we play the teeter-totters, what you noticed was we would do a downstroke, and then when we played the upstrokes, we would also do them as rest though. We wouldn't actually physically touch. So when we play down on the 1, we get a downstroke. But when we play on the 2 and up, we rest. On the downstroke, we rest again. On the upstroke, we rest again. And then as fashion, when we come back to the 1 again, we would be coming down on the 1, playing through the notes. And I'll even do that in the same color to keep it consistent. So the concept behind this is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but we could say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It just keeps repeating, but that's what it looks like in a open. Closed, if we were to just repeat this over and over again, this is what our teeter-totters are. So when I go back to this later in this video, this is kind of the concept we're going to be doing. But when we hold these notes out in fashion, if a whole note is worth 4 beats, and then a half note is going to be worth 2 beats, you can put 2 of those inside one of those. Thusly, when we go to the next notes, they take that whole note with the whole head, and then they fill in the head. So the note head's filled in with a stem. Those are called quarters. So whole notes, half notes, we have quarter notes, and there are 4 quarters, just like there are 4 quarters in a dollar. When we go to our next note, we have the same type of note built, except for now we're going to put a little flag off the side, or a quava is what we call it. Generally, when you see these notes, you'll see these notes like this, right? And what happens is, because that becomes a little tedious, we just connect these little flags together. These are called 1/8 notes. So when we do 1/8 notes, we know that we could subdivide these. So just to keep true to form, if we have a whole note and we subdivide that, we get 2 half notes. When we subdivide that, we get 4 quarter notes. When we subdivide that, we get 8 1/8 notes. It just keeps going on in this fashion. The next notes we do are called 16th notes. They have the same stem, the same note head. And then instead of having just 1 bar going in between these, they have 2 bars. What do I mean? Just like that. Boom. Those are 16th notes. So the 16th note absolutely looks like this, and it has 2 flags. But again, when they're next to each other, we put them together. It keeps going on like that for 64th notes, 32nd notes, on and on and on. The way we count that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, one of the most common times in music is called common time. It's called 4/4. It just means that there are 4 beats per measure, and that the quarter note gets the beat. When we do other divisions like 2/4, that means that there are 2 beats per measure, and then the quarter notes still get the beat. If we were to change this to, let's say, 12/8, that means there are 12 beats per measure, and that the 1/8 notes get the beat. Now, I know this abstractly is a lot of information, but the concept is we're going to be playing our chords and rhythms over the top of these. So here at the 5-minute mark would conclude part one of just what notation is. Notation is the duration of a note. Each individual note, like we saw, can be put together. If we have a bar and then another bar and then another bar and a bar, we've got 3 measures here. If I had 2 half notes, a whole note, and 4 quarter notes, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only playing on the first beat. If we had an 8th note in there, it would sound like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, and that's an incomplete measure. However, we will go over notation a little bit later. And now what I like to do in this portion is to move on to the next part. We're just going to talk about how to read a diagram. How many sharps and how many flats are there in the key of C? That's right, there's absolutely none. C, D, E, F, G, A, and then B. You notice how I'm writing the B a little bit weird. That's because the B is different. What we have here is a major chord, a minor chord, a major chord, a minor chord, and some diminished. The reason why I'm writing these a little different is I would like for you to see each one of these has a tonality. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C. How many notes are there in a scale? 7. 7 in the diatonic scale. If we had another scale called the chromatic scale, we would have every single note that's inside, meaning all those pesky black keys. One of the things that we talk about is noticing on the piano that there are black keys, and then on the fretboard, we really don't have them characteristically of black notes. We just have them as being notes. So this is a chromatic scale. There are 12 notes. When we go from 1 to 1, or do to do, we could have 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 1. It's the same thing as our diatonic scale, except now it has all the notes that are in between. And what I'd like you to notice is there is no half step between E and F and B and C. Meaning, when we go even over to the piano, we notice that the black keys right here, if we had C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, there is no black here for E sharp. E sharp is F. It's a half step. Just like between B and C, there is no black key. Meaning, those are our naturally occurring half steps. Inside of each 7-note diatonic scale, there are these 2. Also, in the chromatic. We'll talk about that later on, but what I want you to know, there are 2 different ways to play a scale. Chromatic, all of the notes, like the Kodachrome, or we could have a diatonic, which has only 7. In the key of C, there are how many sharps and flats? None. So, when we play any chord, we could use this system to make them. We'll go over that in our next session on how to build a chord and what all this means. And remember, if you take away 1/10 of this, inevitably, just like pancakes, they will stack up and you will have a nice big stack of awesome information that then you can make use of. Until that point, just have fun doing these little creative lessons together. First one, of course, is called the spiders. Draw it kind of weird and fun. Here are the strings of our instrument. We have a 6-string, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what we want to do is know that our E is the lowest string. It's the 6th string. Our A is the 2nd lowest string, and it's the 5th string. Now, These are the bass notes, meaning when we play these top 4 strings, every chord that you're gonna learn pretty much can be played on a ukulele, heck, even a mandolin for some of these, even a banjo. So the concept is, what we're gonna be doing is we're forming chords based off of these set strings. In between the fretting, we have the fret, which is where we play. Our finger is either going to go directly down on top of the string and press it down so it depresses the unit, or we're going to play our finger flat against the string as a flat note. We'll talk about that, but for the beginning, make sure every one of these notes is a pressing down note, very pointy. One of the chords we did out of using these notes is knowing that the D string, the G string, the B string, and then again the E string is present. Now E up top is 1, B is going to be the 2, G is the 3, and D is going to be the 4. Going through this process, it kind of looks like a grid, and I hope you like grids or Cartesian planes. I sure do. If I were to say, go to the 2nd fret and play the second, let's see here, 1st finger on the 2nd fret, we would put our finger right here, and the note we would be playing is called an F sharp. I'm going to get rid of that E because now it's no longer the E, and because we just learned that an E to an F is a half step, E, F, it occurs naturally. There's our F sharp. When we go here, I want to get rid of the D, and I want to go to the C, C sharp, and then D. So I'm going to put a D right here. And then I want to get rid of the G, and I want to play an A note. Now this chord, which looks like a triangle, is called a D major. It's one of my favorite chords. So between this, the spider exercises are going to allow you to play all the different notes over the top of this and get your fingers used to doing minor seconds. And then what the teeter-totters are going to do is they're going to get your fingers using chords. When you play the spider exercises, you want to play your 1st finger on the 1st fret, 2nd finger on the 2nd fret, 3rd finger on the 3rd fret, 4th on the 4th. Keep these 3 fingers on here when moving your next finger up to the next fret, and then follow suit. Doing the same thing through the process. You have 24 opportunities to play a minor second. When you get all the way up to the top, go all the way back down here. So when your pinky hits this last one, go back here and put your index finger right on that 1st fret and then nail that out. If you play this in the morning for 5 minutes and you go at this beat and you go down, up, down, up, you should be able to get through this whole process at least 8 times. When you do that every morning 8 times and every night, by week 2, you start seeing being very attainable and easy as far as scales go. So this is our process for spider exercises. It allows us to creep up the fretboard and use our fingers to develop muscle memory and go through the process of seeing how we can flow up the fretboard. The next one is called the teeter-totters. I'm just going to call them T-tots. What we're going to do is we're going to act like the chord is sitting on a fulcrum. We're going to use our 1, 2, and 3 fingers to play the D major, and then we're going to use our 2, 3, and 4 finger to play the D major as well. What it looks like is this. When we have our chord, I'm just going to draw the top half, why not? When we draw the chord like that, you're going to want to kind of not play the E and the A as far as this goes. Just kind of attack, use your strum on that 1 for the down to go here on the 1 for the D. You're then going to rest, rest, rest. And what we're going to do is every time you go to put your finger on the downstroke, you're just going to lay down the finger that should have been there. So the first time you do it, you play the D major. When you go up with your hand for the rhythm, 1, play, up, you're going to remove a finger, and then on the downstroke, you're going to put your 2nd finger where your 1st finger was, meaning you're going to play the same exact chord, right? Not going to play the E and the A string. You're going to play that finger here, except when you played this the first time, you had your 1st finger on, let's see here, your 1st finger would have been on this, your 2nd finger would have been there, and your 3rd finger would have been there. Now we're going to remove that 1st finger. It will be our 2nd finger. Our 2 finger that went down there will now be our 3rd finger. And now we're going to bring our pinky onto the fretboard to play the exact same triangle type shape chord, except for in the process of this, we're going to be switching over one of our fingers 1 beat at a time. I do hope this makes sense. I'm going to pull back this a little bit here, show you on my ukulele, which has nylon strings, a little bit easier for my fingies. However, this is what it's going to look like. We're going to take this shape, we're gonna play down through the note. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Notice how the chord's made, playing it out. Now I'm gonna go back up, put a first finger down for the first rest, second finger down for the second rest, third finger down for the third rest, and now I'm ready to play the chord again. D major, rest, switch, rest, switch, rest, switch, rest, play. Rest, switch, rest, switch, rest, switch, rest, play. I know it seems awkward, but what this does is it gets your hand going up and down in perfect rhythm. And inevitably, we're gonna add that little sway that we were talking about. And then we're gonna use that to perform really great rhythm. The reason being is if you practice doing it like this, we could teach you those rhythms aforementioned. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, rest, rest, rest. Half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. Half notes were 2 beats. 1, 2. Quarter notes, every stroke. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Eighth notes. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. 16th. Down, up, 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 down, up. And then 32nd notes. And see, depending on how fast you start, that's how fast those notes are called. This can also be considered a 32nd note if you started off your whole notes as 1 and 2 and, but then if we started our whole notes as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 32nd notes seem awfully fast. So our concentration together is you playing your chord of the week, which is a D major. The D major is made from a D, F sharp, and an A. And that is the 1, the 3, and the 5 of the major chord. A lot of information today. Very nice meeting you. These other videos won't be as long, but I do start it off longer to see if your attention span can watch the whole video. And then if you regurgitate the information next week and see what we could zone in on. Every student and every teacher bonds a certain relationship, but that allows us to develop a relationship with vocabulary and allows you to also infiltrate music on your own terms. I really enjoyed meeting you in the fam again. We'll see you next week. Aloha.